Welcome to Tone Talks. How's everybody doing today? This is Antonio Moore coming to you from Tone Talks. Appreciate everybody tuning in. I wanted to have a brief discussion about the elections we're seeing in Alabama, give my opinion, give everybody a chance to kind of see the realities of the horrendous conditions of black life in Alabama so that we understand what we should be demanding from Doug Jones if we're going to give him our support. So many people are saying black people need to turn out, and I believe they do. I believe that it's an important election. You look at how slimly the pass of the tax reform happened with the Senate vote, and we just have to wonder what the impact of 1, 2, or 3 senators swinging in a different direction could have been to block this. So this is an important election, but just as important as it is to look at the impact on the national level, it's important to look on the local level and understand how our people are living in Alabama. So, you know, I start to look at this thing, and you have the major news, of course, of the harassment accusations of Roy Moore, which put Doug Jones in play. This is, you know, a red state, expected to swing red, but the harassment accusations against Roy Moore have made this a real questionable and up for grabs kind of election. And inside of that, what we've seen is that there's a call for African Americans to turn out. But my issue is that when we look at this state, what I really wanted to do with this video is just to show you the realities of this state of Alabama. You know, I had a chance to visit down there during the 50th. I went down there to screen my documentary, Freeway Cracking the System. And it was just an interesting experience to drive into Alabama, into Selma, Alabama. Not only because of the, of course, long-standing historical, positioning of Selma, Alabama in American history, but you also get this sense of being lost in time. That all the white folks that was racist then is still there. You know, they parents taught them the same things. They don't come out for no Selma. They just stay in their house, but they feel how they feel with their Confederate flag. And I think for us, what we don't understand is it's not enough to just know that they exist, because they control local politics. And I think it shows up, for me, in the reality of what Alabama looks like today. Just recently, you know, me and Yvette Cornell covered hookworms in Alabama maybe a month and a half, 2 months ago. And I'll pull up the Your Web article that covered a call from Breaking Brown, from Tone Talks, for the House of Rep to stop talking about DACA and start talking about the issues that face her constituency. Those issues are hookworms and mass incarceration. You know, you had this House of Rep who her district was 77% black, but then the hookworms happened and she wasn't even talking about it. Hookworms is a 19th century disease, and somehow black folks all through the bottom of Alabama were facing this as a result of bad infrastructure. The same bad infrastructure that we saw in Flint, Michigan. This isn't isolated to Alabama, but it's a great lens to see the reality of why black life needs to be evaluated. The consequence of slavery needs to be reviewed so we understand what this country did to our families and to our lives. And I think for a lot of us, we put this in the back of our head like slavery was a long time ago, Jim Crow was a long time ago. What does that matter now? And it wasn't a long time ago. You had the UN just as recently as last week connecting the dots. The UN sent a poverty brigade of sorts that basically tours the world looking at the conditions of the poor. And I'm pulling up the article now right here. And what the article showed is that black folk, poor black folk, and some poor white folk, but primarily poor black folk, were living in the worst conditions that they've ever seen in the first world. The UN Poverty Brigade. Think about what I'm saying. Now, what I'm saying to you is that for Doug Jones to have gotten our vote, we should have got commitments from him that you're going to fix this. Or you're going to make sure that you put legislation forward that fixes this. Or that you're going to make sure that you're going to raise hell if it's not fixed. Now, I feel like in some way they just asking for our vote just so I ask for our vote, and that's not good enough. My thing is just to make sure you understand that black folks is suffering across this country, but they suffering in Alabama, and people are asking them just to show up on a dime. And I feel like we look at this thing and we look at the conditions of the national reality of black life, but then we see this exaggerated lens through Alabama Another side of this is mass incarceration. Alabama's horrible for it. Among the top 5 worst states for black incarceration. We see the data, and I think the population of black folks is 25 to 29% of the population, but they 54% of the prisoners. Let me throw that on his head and show you that we can extrapolate that probably about 12.5% of the state is black males, and then in effect, black males are about 50% of the prisoners. And I think we got to start dealing with the context of having a prison state. A prison state that isn't addressing the reality of why, how we got here. You have a governor, Governor Ivey, who is talking about just in mid-December, right now, leasing some of the prisons to private prisons. Imagine what the conditions turn to as you lease the prisons to private prisons. Fundamentally, I think that Alabama provides us a lens, a window into the conditions of black life, into the conditions of black America that we need to be aware of. Do I say we need to vote for Doug Jones? If anything, to block Trump? Yeah. But I also say for him to get our vote, for him to get us to turn out, we need to have made succinct demands of him. Succinct demands to increase the living condition of black folk in his state and nationally. Now, there's an article in the Atlantic, I'm pulling it up now, and what you see in that article is American Slavery Reinvented. What it exposes is this insidious prison labor system that's used in Alabama and across the country. I mean, it's horrendous, the reality of how this has come to be, and then how it's a secondary, not even a newsworthy issue. You don't hear them talking about how black folk are living. And we need to hear that. We need to hear how black folk are living and how black folks' living conditions will get better as a result of voting in a Democrat. That's what we need to be demanding of. You know, they took Roland Martin off the news. We ain't got no black media. So Tone Talks have to bring it to you. I want you guys to get out, read the articles, connect the dots, get informed, and understand who you voting for. Understand what you need to demand of them. Understand what will happen if you don't get that from them. You know, Doug Jones is a former prosecutor. There's a great op-ed in the AL.com. I'm pulling up now. Scales of justice in Alabama need more balance. You can check that out. I always say get informed about who you voting for. You know, look into his background. But Roy Moore, he's a hard right conservative. Just recently he was caught saying America was great during slavery. I mean, this is the guy that we need to block. I do say that. But we also need to have our needs met to come out in groves. This is Tone Talks. Please go to tonetalks.org to subscribe and donate. Let's push this around. Let's get the discussion going. Because our folks shouldn't be living like that anywhere in this country, anywhere in this world. Thank you.